One of the most exciting new offerings that CA has come out with for the event. This is going to be our SaaS offering for Virtual API. And my name is David Griffin. I am head of product marketing for the application delivery portfolio. I am absolutely pleased to announce that Ian Kelly has joined us, and he will be presenting on the topic. So Ian, please join us.
Great. Thank you very, very much. Let me put the drink down here. So, I've been with CA for about 15 months, and since I first started with CA, there was an idea and a concept that I had in my head that I wanted to see come into service virtualization. And as I started talking with other customers, it's hard to talk to customers when you don't work for CA. So once I started working for CA, talking to other customers, we found that this was really a missing gap of helping developers come on to service virtualization, not requiring a workstation, not requiring some of the other pieces. And we tried to imagine how we might put that together. So we did a bunch of things under the covers within our service virtualization product by adding APIs. So we have APIs throughout the layers of the product that you see over at the demo stations. And the advancement of all of those APIs allowed us to build the Virtual API Cloud. So you might be wondering, okay, cloud, that's like a buzzword, virtual, kind of still don't know what that means. APIs, okay, I kind of get that. What we have done is we provide you the ability to virtualize RESTful endpoints. So REST is what drives the web. Ever since Tim Berners-Lee and Roy Fielding came up with their dissertations about hypermedia and HTML, it is the content of the web. We allow you to virtualize that by building these RESTful APIs and making intelligent APIs out of them. Not just a basic stub, but a full, rich, virtualized interface, the same thing that you would get from our full-fledged service virtualization product. You can connect to those virtual APIs from anywhere in the world. I can connect to them from my cell phone. You can connect to them from India. You can connect to them from China. You can connect to them from anywhere. The reason is we've put all of this up in the cloud. So there's no need to install this. There's no license. You all already have a license. So we've granted that to you already. We have all the powerful features under the covers of service virtualization. They are not mocks. You might see other individuals in the competitive environment that have mocks and stubs. So if you're familiar with Apiary, they have the ability to create a lightweight mock. It will respond back exactly the same way every time. We can respond back exactly the same way every time as well, or we can give you dynamic flexibility and variability. We have the ability to have parameter matching, and you're going to see that in some of the examples that we have here. We've also posted a number of examples on our communities and examples up in GitHub for you. We have magic strings with custom parameters. If you're not familiar with service virtualization, that's all gobbledygook for you right now. I'll show you what magic strings are and how they work and how we can parameterize those to make services intelligent and virtual services intelligent. We have something that we're prototyping within Virtual API that will eventually make its way back to other products. It may not make its way back there in the same exact way, but we're working on that. You'll see things like order by and sort. We have the ability to create a virtual API of books, and it has 3 different books. And typically, that virtualized interface would just respond that way every time. But I can do interesting things in Virtual API Cloud where I can say, sort by the title of the book, ascending. So it will give me an ascending sort of the title. Or I can flip that around and say, make a descending sort. Or sort by this other field. Or what's a common usage pattern within APIs is, give me this book, but I only want to know the author and the ISBN number or the ID number because I want to order this on Amazon. I don't need to know the year it was published. I don't need to know the short synopsis. I don't need all that information. Just give me back the pertinent details to my use case. Finally, the component of Virtual API Cloud that is the most ripe for explosion is the ability for you to share APIs, create APIs with others, collaborate on those APIs, and leverage the work of other people. you'll see a tight integration that we have with GitHub for our authentication. When you authenticate with the site, you just use GitHub. Your GitHub account is the way that you follow other individuals, that you share with other individuals, that you save your virtual services and things. So let's get into a little bit of what that looks like. As we go back and forth between users and developers' experiences on Virtual API Cloud, we have users looking for places to access a client API. So if you wanted to connect to the Twitter API today, you could go and do that. You can get a user key. You could get a rate limit, which might limit your ability to connect at sometimes. And you could connect to the Twitter API. In the Virtual API Cloud, you could virtualize that Twitter API and connect as much as you wanted. Run over and over and over and over. Run the same tests. Run it with certain data sets that you'll never get from the live Twitter API. It becomes your own private sandbox. You have the ability from the developer side to share with your clients, as a producer of an API, what they might experience when they call that API. So let's say you and I are building a website together, and it's a, let's say a florist business. And you want to have a query for things that match a certain price range. And I build you that. I give you a query, and you say, okay, between $50 and $100, here's the things that you can get. And it has a gift basket, and it has flowers, and it has some other things. And you look at the data results, and you go, well, wait, there's a gift basket and flowers. This is a florist API, right? Well, florists don't just sell flowers anymore. They sell balloons and all these other things. So as the client, you tell me, can you make me a version of that where I can say, give me things between this price range and this price range that are in this category? Well, in a typical mode, I would have to throw up my arms, go back to my workstation, gripe about the customer to the guy that works next to me, write the interface again, right? Test it, code it, put it together, and then show it to you. Only for you to come back to me yet again and say, they have balloons. Do they have helium balloons and regular balloons? And then I go back and start the process again. Virtual API Cloud gets the developer out of that chair, and I can rapidly iterate with you right here to develop that API. We can both be thinking and sparking off of those ideas. So Virtual API Cloud works both for the developer and for the end user. We'll show you some of those things as we go through. So here is our demonstration. If you wish to access Virtual API Cloud today, there we go. Okay, if you wish to access Virtual API Cloud today, you can go to vapi, vapi.ca.com. We hung on the Vapi name. We just like it. We're like virtual APIs. It sounds great to us. So vapi.ca.com is where this is posted at. You can see the information that I just told you about why you create APIs, what the value of virtualization is, what the power that they offer you is, and you can come and you can log in. We're going to log in, like I said, with our GitHub credentials. And we go right back to Vapi. So I'm going to save the password so I don't have to log in there again. Once I'm logged into Vapi or once I'm logged into GitHub, every time I come to my workstation, I bring up Vapi, it's already there. You'll see a thing at the beginning of Vapi that says, please wait. What that's doing is seeing if you're currently logged into GitHub and if you can get to all the information that you need. So you don't need to log in once you've logged in once it's in your current session. I've created a number of APIs here. In fact, I've created the GitHub API. It's quite a large API. But if I want to create an API, I can come in here. I can create it as a basic post. I can give a nice description here. I type just about as well as all of us do when we're in front of a bunch of people. And it gives me this API. So this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be a post. It's going to be /res/example resource curly bracket thing. It's going to have a request data on the top and a response on the bottom. This is a super simple example, but posts are terrible. Posts are ugly. That's why this looks like this. So what it's going to do is Lisa, service virtualization, so CA service virtualization, is going to see that this is a number. I'm going to do something here that might make things a little strange, but will make it at least readable for you. It's going to see that this is a number and that this number matches that number. So once it's created the API, I'll show you a little bit of the intelligence that it has on there. That intelligence allows me to put any number that I wish, and it will automatically make that as my response. So now I've created that. I can modify this, and it will have the response. Now you're saying that's a very simple, boring use case, Ian. I don't see why that gives me anything of real value. So let's go and create something that's a little more interesting. Earlier I talked about this Books API. We're going to develop this Books API from a thing called a RAML specification. We have many different concepts of engineering specifications that came to us through SOAP and through SOA. Many of you know WSDL, some of you know WADL. Those are great specifications, but they're hugely flawed. The thing that they're missing is the structure of the message with the data. They don't merge those two. So if all of us look at a WSDL document in XML and we look at it, it's hard to figure out what the actual structure of that might be. If we look at a RAML document, I'll show you what one of those looks like, we can figure out that structure pretty quickly. We've given you some examples here on GitHub. If you go to github.com, dev test solutions, and don't worry, you don't have to write that down. It's all on our community site. You can see our Books API. And I'm going to blow this up just a little bit more to where we can see it and talk about it. This is a RAML specification that says the resource is book. And I get that resource, and when I get it, it should look like this. It should have the Wizard of Oz, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, sorry, Kim and Christine. It should have different ID types and different ISBN numbers. And then I'm also going to have this capability to have a title of a book and search for that title of the book. So let's grab that and put that into Virtual API and see what it does. It's going to generate those request response pairs. It looks just like what we saw earlier. There it is. Let's create it. And then let's test it. So let's try it out. We see our get book. I'm going to execute that. We have the response back. I have the very basic response. If I want to have title, remember our magic strings work in such a fashion that things that I put within here will automatically come back within my response. So there's my response, and I was kind of not thinking very much because the web doesn't like spaces, right? Vappy took care of that for me, encoded it, and made sure that that was here. Just to show you that there's no smoke and mirrors, I can have a properly encoded sample, and it'll reply with the same thing. So this is a very lightweight concept of how to build services. But if we come back and see something more interesting, more complicated, we can look at this example. This is a Parrot API. You say hello to it, and it responds back with a little bit more than hello. It responds back, and it says hello, and it inserts a US common first name that gets that from the magic string patterns that are within service virtualization. It also returns back a city, a state, and a zip code. Now, not just any state city, state, or zip code, because that would be pretty easy, right? You could flip a quarter and get Brooklyn. And then you'd flip another quarter and you'd get California. And then you'd flip another quarter and you'd get some crazy number, right? Zip codes are actually not sequential. There's 40,000 of them, but there's some numbers that are not zip codes in the United States. Finally, it gives you some other textual results to give you an understanding of this. So let's look at this API and what it returns to us. Corpus Christi, Texas is in 78476. That is the zip code within Corpus Christi, Texas. It knows that a potential human name is Jennifer, and every time that I ask for this, it will iterate over those. It will give me these back as many times as I want. If I have specific testing conditions that are simply looking for variation, it can play that back to me from my mobile app that I'm connecting to this API with. If I want stasis, I can put the specific stasis I'm looking for, and it will always look the same. I can do other things with even more interesting APIs that other users have built. So every API that a user builds is here. This is one of our developers, Scott, and he created a very nice little API. We're going to change the ID here. So my special camel case ID, and we're going to execute it. You can see he threw that in there, and then he gave me a whole bunch of strings. It's intelligent. It knows what day it is today. It knows what day it is tomorrow. It knows what time it is right now. It knows that birthdays are dates in the past and not in the future. That you could have been born in night, but not today. Things like that. It tells you that a real middle initial is G, that a name is Robert, that a valid credit card expiration date may be in the past, may be in the future. Credit card verification code, credit card numbers, potential email addresses. There's a US phone number. They don't do phone numbers in the UK like they do in the US. So those are different. That's a different data type. A landline in the UK is different from a cell phone. A street address, a social security number, a UK car registration. It can build all of these things for you to give you dynamic variability within your API, make it look, feel, act, and touch exactly like the operating system. Every time I get this back, I will get a variable. This allows me to build virtualized APIs that feel real to a user, that look powerful for a developer, and can let me remove all of my constraints. The same reasons that I use service virtualization, to remove the inability for an unavailable system to reply, because another system might go to sleep and isn't available, because specific data is not staged or available in another system for me to use. All of these are removed the same way that we do in service virtualization for the Virtual API Cloud. If you like VAPI or Virtual API Cloud, you can tell us about it here. If you don't like it, you can tell us about it here. If you want to give us comments about it, you can give those here. You don't need to tell us who you are. So all of this was built for the developer. This was built for the developer to feel comfortable with the solution, to be able to do this at arm's length, to not have to go through a lengthy registration process, to not have to be visited by a salesperson. They're wonderful guys and gals, but sometimes it's great just to get working. This is Virtual API Cloud. We also have a community. This is a community-based product. It's not really a product because we don't sell it. We give it away, but it's still a community-based product. We provide a community within communities.ca.com to let you engage, to learn, to understand, to give differences, new features, enhancements, defects, issues, all of those things are open here. We communicate all of this in the open. There's none of this that's back channel through our team. Our team puts their future requirements here. We utilize and we're able to get to this point because of dedicated developers at CA, trusting and advocating leadership at CA, the ability for our internal hosting team to support and deploy this in a very short amount of time, and something that we don't really talk about very much, especially at CA World and these types of conferences, but our internal CA platform. Our internal CA platform allows us to continually deliver this. We do use our release automation product here. We use our Layer 7 product here, our CA API. Sorry, 7 years experience. With the product, it's going to be a little bit of time. We use our products here. This is a dog food experiment. We deploy this every Thursday. We deployed it this Thursday. Just to show you what we deployed this Thursday, every piece of software has things that it does well and things that are limitations. You notice that as of 1.1.14 or 11.1.14, we required a version number within RAML. That was a mistake. We made that mistake on our part. We fixed the code. We redeployed that on the 5th, and that is now removed. Hopefully, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll also remove this limitation. This community provides the information that you need to get our samples, which are here, to get started with leveraging and utilizing the community. It also provides you the ability to know how to utilize the Explorer and the editors. They're very powerful. They have keys and features in them. You can do things like find and replace. You can do things like modifications, copies and multiple pastes, all of those things. All of the documentation for the product, all of the capabilities are within the community. If you locate or identify something that you believe is missing, and you say, I couldn't figure out how to do X, ask. We have a team of folks that are developing this product and are continuing to evolve this product. We will respond to you. We will add those things in, and if we're missing things, we'll add them back. We're looking to add new capabilities and new features and new structures. While we were working on this, I was part of the Swagger 2.0 working group that was accomplishing a similar function as RAML within Swagger. We will be looking at adding Swagger support as well to VAPI. You can develop Swagger and RAML documentation from your existing code. You can utilize code helpers to deliver those, or you can write them from scratch. We've done all three. So that, in a nutshell, is our virtual API cloud. As we bring out more and more samples, you'll see those samples here. We provide a little bit of explanation of what these samples are. We also give you the ability to modify these samples on your own. You can take this sample, make your own copy that works for you, and if you wish to share it back to the community, you may. So we have a very open door policy on those. We have the ability to virtualize any RESTful API. It's provided for you for free, in the cloud, no sign up, GitHub ID. So if anyone has any questions, I think we have the mobile app, or let's go live questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Ian. Couple of things. So you do have your mobile app if you want to raise any questions electronically. We'll be answering questions throughout the show. So even if you think of something later, please raise it and let us know. There's also a survey in the mobile app, but we've got a few more minutes if we want to entertain any live questions while we have Ian here.
Hi, I'm Phil Jordan with TransUnion. I wondered if you can go into any of the hooks into the Layer 7 piece.
Okay, so when you deliver an API, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay. When you deliver an API, you get a very nice short little link. That short little link is right here. Because of reverse proxying and other things, that link was about this long. Your link is vapi.ca.com/API/your GitHub username / the name of the API. It wasn't that way. We wrote all of these URLs and we write them dynamically every time you generate and modify that API with Layer 7. The back-end API, if you're familiar with Lisa Service Virtualization, heavily utilizes ports. So typically that would have a port number on it, something like 8104, right? So it would be this kind of vapi.ci.com :8104/ this big long thing. It's not very easy to copy. I can't tell you about it, and you get back to your desk and you're able to type it in. All of those types of things. So we utilize Layer 7 to shorten those strings. We utilize Layer 7 to protect the VSE backend. So we limit the number of hits that you can have at any 1 second. Now, you're not going to overdo it, but we didn't build this platform for you to performance test on either. So you can't hit it with 100 million users and just run over it. The other thing is VSE, there's actually a multitude of VSEs behind here. So which VSE is that server living in? We maintain routing logic code that even if VSEs go down, virtual service environments, for those of you that aren't familiar with the CA Service Virtualization engine, that is the engine of virtualization behind the scenes. If any of those go down, we utilize it to move the services. We have to tell Layer 7 where to point, because it was pointing here, and now it needs to point there. So those are the purposes that we utilize Layer 7 for currently. Great question, thank you. Just a show of hands, was anybody familiar with RAML before we talked here? Yay. Yay. Thank you. How about Swagger 2.0? Same guys and a couple more. Cool. Okay. Go ahead, David.
We have time for one more question.
Yep, one more question.
Ian, thanks a lot. This is really exciting for us, I think. Magic strings. The power, it seems, in the virtualization really resides in the magic strings. And
yes.
Obviously importing the RAML, but in terms of an end user getting that variation of data and not having to stub. So are the magic strings maintainable by a developer? Do you have a repository of them? How do I determine whether, suppose I have a special one that I want to use with range values or validations of some sort. Is that understandable?
Yes, perfect question. I'll answer it actually 3 ways. I hope I remember all 3. Number 1, we have a pre-built set of magic strings that do intelligent things for you, like first name, last name, social security number, city, state, zip, all those. You cannot add any more of those on your own. The reason is I don't have a real good way to allow you to add those to the VSE engine and not have conflicts with potentials from other users. So right now we've removed that ability to do it. If you were within Lisa, you could create your own magic string groupings. We have a helper on our blogs that will be actually posted like next week. That's already posted, but we timed some of the release of these things. I'm just super transparent, sorry. That talks about how to build those magic strings. So you can use a D for a decimal. You can use an A for any hexadecimal digit. If you wanted to do something like digit, 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 you would do a D and then in parentheses put the number 3. That will always give you a 3-digit number. So there's those kind of things. Finally, Virtual API Cloud was a learning framework for us. For when we deliver you a product that is more SaaS enabled, it is strong, it is robust, and it has all the features you're looking for. We had to turn off a piece of functionality because we couldn't figure out a good, secure way of leveraging that with you. You'll notice in 8.0 that we have JSR 232 support. You can write within a request or response, Groovy code, Java code, Bean Shell, all of these amazing things that give you super powerful services. Those are not available within Virtual API Cloud. Not because we didn't want to make them available, but because when we give you Bean Shell and Groovy and things like that, you can knock over other people's stuff or change the way other people's things look. So until we figure that out, which we will figure that out, we've removed it from Virtual API Cloud. I hope that gives you the 3 sets of those. If you have any questions or would like to see Virtual API Cloud other than just back at your hotel room or on your laptop, please stop by the demo station right over here. There's also a demo within the DevOps wedge that shows creation of a virtual service from an API portal, which is the CA API portal. It creates the backend on Virtual API Cloud for the lease calculator. When they modify it, it utilizes the request and response pairs that were iterated to create that backend service on VAPI, and it utilizes that to create another version to see if the tests match. So is your API backwards compatible to an earlier version? That's all enabled by Virtual API Cloud, and that's all available within the demonstration. I think it's called Agile Parallel Development. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.